This will be a quick walkthrough of just a short-term get-home bag, just a day pack. So obviously this doesn't need to be super fancy if the goal is just to get yourself home. Probably just your car's not functional and you need to get home from work. So depending on how far you live from where you work will determine how long this bag needs to be able to support you. For me, I'm just over 20 miles from where I work. So roughly 24 hours or less I can reasonably expect to get back home. So primarily the only things that you need to have in here are what will support you in doing that, primarily water and shelter. Protection from the elements, primarily if your trip is short, you don't need to spend the night, you don't need to stop to sleep, you can just keep walking from the time you started to the time you finally get home. And at that point, it's just the shelter that you need for your protection from the elements on your person, and then the water that you need to support all of the exertion that you're going to do on that walk, depending on what kind of elevation, what kind of climate you'll be dealing with. The bag itself is very basic, streamlined, slim, not very bulky. If you wanted to expand, it does have all the molly webbing and some Velcro to attach basic things. The zippers are all fairly water resistant and it's good quality durable material. Besides the little water pouch, there's not a whole lot else to it. There is a little bit of webbing and adjustability in the straps, and the padded straps are going to be helpful in terms of carrying this bag for however long your trip's going to be. And then just a basic whistle. There's a couple different versions of like a get-home bag. There's one that's like if you'd like to be found, and there's one that you would not like to be found. We'll kind of talk a little bit about those two differences. Make sure you have enough water on you. I'd say it's only good for maybe less than half a day. So you probably want to supplement this with maybe some water bladders inside the bag. These are good for long-term water storage. They're good for 5 years from the time that they are put together, and then maybe a couple of these every hour or so on a hike. That's a good way of keeping more water in your bag, in addition to just water bottles. You can do really basic water bottles like this sport bottle. You can also do the Nalgene's. As long as it has the loop, you can carabiner to the molly webbing, and then that's a good way of carrying even more water. Obviously get these in all different types of shapes and sizes. If you were stuck boiling water to purify it from whatever water source you can find, you don't have enough water on you, then these single-walled stainless steel water bottles are good for that. You can definitely boil water in these, purify water to where it's safe to drink, but it needs to be single-walled stainless. If you'd like to have your warm or cool water stay that temperature, regardless of what climate you're in, you can get these double-wall stainless. It doesn't need to be stainless necessarily, but double-walled water bottles will keep the water at the temperature that you would like to stay for longer periods of time at least. They're just not as durable. Back to the pack. So most of the equipment and gear, I guess, are all in the main storage compartment. It's not as easy to get to as all of the quick access. Like for eye protection, you got sunglasses that are easy to get to in this little padded top pouch. The front top pouch has got your emergency poncho for obviously protection from the rain. You can get these that are a little bit oversized, so that'll actually cover your backpack, which is a good idea if you are in a rainy climate, you're expecting to be dealing with rain. It would be pretty crappy if all of this gear and your spare clothes, socks, stuff got wet. The bag is somewhat water resistant, but definitely not waterproof, so poncho can help, and having quick access to that is a good idea. In this pouch, you also got earplugs for hearing protection. Depending on what type of scenario that you're dealing with, you may or may not need hearing protection. And then quick access to good quality multi-tool is a good idea too. It's just very basic. Gerbers, Leatherman, SOG are some of the big, good quality Leatherman style multi-tools. It does not need to be one of those brands specifically, but it does need to be a good quality that potentially help save your life or help you get out of a crappy situation. This next storage compartment, not as easy to get into, does have a little bit more storage space though. So start one thing at a time. I've got just kind of a little homemade supplementary survival kit. It has really basic things that I would like to stay as dry as possible. It has a quick little reference guide, pocket guide on survival tips from one of the Gerber knives I bought. A couple packages of Pedialyte are a good way to prevent and recover from dehydration. It also gives you a little bit of flavor to your water. These are handy, and each one is good for 8 ounces of water. You can also water it down slightly. You can put it in a much bigger water container. You can just put that and water it down. You get a little bit more flavor out of your water, and the added benefit of replacing electrolytes. Got to figure out what type of electrical equipment you're going to be having in your bag, and probably have a couple spare batteries for that. You can do rechargeables, but I'd argue that you're not going to be out long enough to need to recharge batteries, so you don't need to waste the time, space, and weight in carrying away to either solar panel recharge or like phone battery backup recharge, AA's or AAA's. Probably be a good idea to have a little bit of a first aid kit. This is just supplementary stuff, triple antibiotic ointment, a couple packages of ibuprofen, Tylenol, and some allergy medication in here. And then super glue. Obviously there's a ton of uses for super glue. It is possible to use it for wound closure if you absolutely need it, but not recommended for that. But all of the typical standard design for uses for super glue, it's a good idea to have that. It's Potable Aqua water tablets. This is the easiest way to purify your water. It definitely leaves a little bit of iodine aftertaste, but with 50 tablets and only needing to use 2 tablets per liter of water, you can obviously purify way more water than you're ever going to need. Just put a pair of tablets in your water bottle, shake it, wait for 30 minutes for it to dissolve, and then your water is completely drinkable from that point. You don't need to take the time to filter it or boil it. If you were needing to boil water, probably be a good idea to have an easy way of starting a fire. So I've got a couple of ways of doing it here. A little matchbook, a couple spare loose matches. Once again, obviously in a waterproof storage container so that it doesn't completely ruin when it gets wet. A couple alcohol wipes for washing your hands or for cleaning a wound. Backup little multi-tool. Obviously you want a good quality full-size multi-tool, but if that is being used for something else, someone else is using it, or it's damaged, broken, missing, you can back it up with one of these small, easy to use, well, not as easy to use, but small and somewhat reliable mini Leathermans. It's just a lot easier to keep that stowed away in your bag when it's so small. A couple loose bandages, a handcuff key if you needed that, and lastly, protection from the elements, some sunscreen. You can also get the full-size bottles. This is just an easy way of keeping some spare sunscreen. You can also reuse the storage container for something else. Once you've taken things out of it, you can obviously reprioritize what you'd like to keep waterproof or as waterproof as possible. Living down here in the south, bugs, especially in the summertime, are definitely an annoyance, so having a head net like this can help. Just make your trip a little less annoying. It's once again kind of protection from the elements. Flashlight's probably a good idea to have, something to have redundancy. Have a couple flashlights, a couple different styles. A flashlight that has a little bit more, I guess, options to it. Something that has this lens where you can adjust the beam and the focal point can be handy. Some of them have different modes where it'll go to a strobe, that in some people's opinion is more useful than others. Down here also quick access to high energy, dense, good quality food. So a couple small packs of nuts, assorted nuts, almonds, stuff like that. Good sustainable energy. These are also really good and really handy. They're not very packed with protein, not a whole lot of fats, just like pure carbohydrates. So definitely good for cardio and the type of thing that you'll be doing walking such long distances. They don't taste bad either, and they're really easy to pack, and they, like I said, they don't taste bad. These emergency packs, you can maybe argue that they're useful for preventing getting sick with like a compromised immune system, being out in the elements for longer periods of time than you're maybe used to. But it's just another way of supplementing your water with giving yourself a little bit of taste. But yeah, you could also get a little bit of use out of all that vitamin C. Could help keep you from getting sick. Some other stuff down here. If you needed to attach something to the bag, fix the bag, in addition to having a way of fixing the bag by using duct tape or 100-mile-an-hour tape, you can also use this mechanics wire. Does not take up very much space, does not weigh very much. It's used for multiple other purposes too, obviously, but attaching things to your bag is probably the most likely use for that. These little mini Gorilla Tape grab and go rolls are really handy as well. They do not take up very much space, somewhat weatherproof, and it'll blend patches or repairs to your bag a little bit better than mechanics wire would, or the standard silver duct tape. Back into this pocket, you got a couple other portions of like fire starting, just a wet fire starting tinder. These are easy to use. You can either use the entire block, it'll last a while, or you can shave off little shavings and turn it into very easy, very reliable fire starting. Pen lights, glow sticks. These are useful at night for if you want to be found. Pen, just make sure you're pairing it with some sort of notepad. These Write in the Rain pads are definitely useful when it's raining or wet outside. I think you just need to pair it with a pen, a Write in the Rain pen that will actually work on the pages. Otherwise, a pencil will always work on these Write in the Rain little notebooks. A couple knives. So it's still a standard box cutter from Harbor Freight. Those are handy and cheap. These energy gel packets, like what cyclists use for long-term races or training. They're very convenient. They don't taste awesome, but it's a good way to get a bunch of calories. These ones specifically are in a small little container. They're 100 calories, 450 milligrams of amino acids, and 220 milligrams of caffeine. They've got higher concentration caffeine, like this one over here has got 35 milligrams of caffeine. They don't taste awesome, but they're definitely convenient. Another back to protection for yourself, a neck gaiter. These are maybe a little more useful in the south where you're dealing with bugs, but they also can help keep the sun off your neck, or at cold temperatures they can help keep you a little warmer by protecting your neck. Because if you're wearing a long sleeve shirt, obviously if you've got a hat on, that's protecting your head and your face. Sunglasses will protect your eyes, but then the neck gaiter will cover between where your shirt ends and where everything else helps protect from there on up. Life straw, these are definitely convenient if you found a source of water and you need a quick way of purifying it immediately. Just drinking straight to this life straw will definitely be convenient. It's just not as easy to use once you've already collected the water, but you can definitely collect a compromised source of water, take the cap off, and then drink straight out of there. You just need to remember to not drink out of that compromised, contaminated water source unless you're filtering it first. Paper maps, if you have your cell phone on you and you either don't have service or you don't have battery remaining, or you'd like to just not use the phone, then paper maps is a good way of getting yourself home, especially if something has happened where maybe your vehicle is reliable but the road home is closed down and now you need to find a way of walking home. This can help keep you from getting lost with you having taken a different route than what you typically do on your normal commute to and from work. That's pretty much it for that front small pocket. Going on to the main storage compartment. Let's see a little bit more stuff in here. Depending on how long your trip is, you may or may not need a little bit more heavy duty version of fire starting material. This is a way of starting a fire with these ferrocene rod and fire striker with easy to use tinder. They don't take up that much space, but if you are able to get a hold of easier to use like Bic lighter or matches, something like that, then this all kind of becomes redundant. Back to the little waterproof storage containers. A Bic lighter is obviously really easy to use, reliable, good way of starting fire. Just maybe keep that out of the rain, and keep it out of as big of temperature swings by keeping it in the waterproof storage container, and then maybe wrapping that with some of your clothing. It'll help keep it from maybe getting too hot in your car if you're leaving it in your car long term. Same story with the battery backup. You can use this to recharge your phone when you obviously pair it with the actual cable that connects to your phone charger. Just make sure to actually bring that, and also it'd be ideal if you could keep this out of the extreme temperature swings that your car will experience. These little gear ties are handy, help keep your cable from getting too tangled up. You can also use it to attach things to your bag. They're pretty easy to use, they're cheap, and they don't take up a whole lot of space. And then next, if you would like to be found, attaching one of these little Harbor Freight lights to your bag is a good way of making yourself more visible. You can also use that to supplement your night vision. If the sun's out and you don't want to be found, you could probably skip the lighting altogether and just go off of cultural lighting. But if you'd like to be found, that's a good way of making yourself more visible, either during the daytime or at night. Chapstick, in addition to sunscreen, some backup earplugs. This little Altoids tin is handy. It's not actually Altoids, it is a little mini sewing kit. So quick on the go repairing of your clothes or gear. It's got a couple needles, buttons, some thread, and a safety pin. And it's an easy way to keep it from getting lost in the little Altoids tin. I really like the Survive Outdoor Longer branded gear. All of the gear is good quality and is definitely geared more towards like being found by search and rescue or another person because it's all so brightly colored. This specifically is their survival medic kit. It's primarily just survival gear with a little bit of supplementary medical supplies. So it has a normal size, well, kind of I guess on the smaller side, bright orange emergency blanket, a fire striker, and a Tinder Quick fire starter. So that combined is a good way of additional backup way of starting a fire. Also have the whistle, a button compass, 2 feet of duct tape, and another little survival instruction handout. The medical supplies are pretty basic, just a pair of alcohol pads, antiseptic towels, a single pack of 2 ibuprofen, triple antibiotic ointment packet, and then a couple small band-aids and safety pins. This package is waterproof, and then once you've opened it, broken the seal, you can reseal it with a Ziploc zipper on the top, so that can be useful to reseal what is actually in the container. But if you'd like to take everything out and store something else in here and keep it waterproof, that's definitely a handy aspect of the Survive Outdoor Longer gear. They also have both single and dual person emergency blankets, brightly orange coloring, so it makes it easy to be found. It's the standard Mylar heat reflective emergency blanket. You can supplement that, especially in colder climates, with the emergency bivy or tent kits. So the bivy, depending on what style you get, are a little bit thicker material. They're a little bit more efficient at maintaining body heat than a emergency blanket will. This takes up a little bit more space. So like this one. Without taking it all the way out of the package, you can tell, once again, the bright orange, easy to spot material. It's a lot of material here, and it's a little thicker. So you can combine that with an emergency blanket. If you're trying to get up off the ground, you can simulate a tent sleeping bag pad by gathering up leaves or pine needles or just layering a couple bivvies and emergency blankets to keep your body from just exhausting all the heat and transferring it directly into the ground that you're sleeping on. These life tents are handy too, especially for just single term use. This one's green, so if you were trying to blend in a little bit better with your surroundings, the green will definitely do a better job of that than the Survive Outdoor Longer gear where it's all bright orange. It's just waterproof tarp material with some paracords that you can attach and create a shelter using the trees, depending on where you decide to set up your little short-term camp. Some of the fancier ones will have tent stakes and instructions on what type of shelter to build and why. Like specifically the Survive Outdoor Longer emergency shelter kit is pretty handy for that. Baby wipes for obvious reasons, it's good to bring for sure, even if it's a very short trip. A hat protecting your face and eyes. A couple pairs of underwear and socks, definitely a good idea to bring that type of stuff. As a first aid kit, you can either build your own or buy one of these little small handy pre-packed kits. It's got basic stuff, hand sanitizer, gauze, nitrile gloves, Q-tips. Added little moleskin is definitely a good idea to bring if you're not used to being on your feet or not used to doing a long-term trip, or with the shoes that you've packed. Definitely expect blisters. You can help minimize that pain or damage with moleskin. Couple triangular bandages and then rolls of gauze. So it's all fairly basic. You can supplement that though, or just build your own first aid kit with things like hand sanitizer is a good idea. Antibiotic ointment's a good idea. Mouthwash, toothpaste, shampoo, soap, hydrocortisone, cream, all that kind of stuff would be good to have. Back to protecting yourself. So a pair of gloves and then a backup pair is a good idea. You can use that to protect your hands when you're working with your hands. But also you can just wear that while you're out and about. Protect your hands from the elements. If it's hot, you can use it to protect your hands from getting sunburned. If it's cold, you can use that to protect your hands from getting too cold. Help prevent frostbite. If it's really cold, obviously you supplement that with actual snow, very cold weather gloves. But depending on the type of environment that you're dealing with, where you live, the time of year, it'll definitely be a good idea to tailor your gear appropriately for the type of climate that you'd be expecting to see. Spare shirt, a pair of headlamps, good idea to have redundancy there if you wanted to use a headlamp. Be frustrating if your single headlamp failed, so having a backup with some spare batteries is a good idea for sure. Down at the bottom, this really dense little portion of the bag. It's not necessary whatsoever to have food, especially for 24 hours or less. You can survive way more than 24 hours without any sort of food, but it's just a little bit more comfortable and convenient to have just some food. The handy like nut and almond packets are easy because there's no preparation involved. You can just keep going. You can stop to eat it, but you can also keep going and then not take the time, waste the time or energy stopping to prepare some sort of meal. This is obviously pretty dense because of what's in it, so a good idea to have that at the bottom of the pack. You don't need to get in that often, but half of this little container compartment is just water bladders. There's maybe a half day's worth of water right here. It's good long-term 5-year shelf life survival boat or lifeboat survival water. And then on that same topic, Lifeboat survival rations. So these are very dense, very energy packed survival food. There are 9 bars in here, and each one's at 410 calories for a total of 3,600 calories within this block. They taste fine. There's a decent amount of protein in each one, but it's primarily just sugar and energy. So definitely a good way of keeping your energy level up, keeping your calorie count up for the day. Salt, you can use that to help supplement your water, help retain water. These energy shots are convenient. Just make sure you're supplementing that with plenty of pure water, because it's a good way of getting yourself dehydrated if you're only drinking these. That's a good way of boosting your energy. You can also boost your energy with the instant coffee packets, especially if you drink coffee normally. It's a good way of getting some caffeine. They don't taste awesome, but it's better than nothing, and there's zero prep involved. If you would like to sit down for at least a little bit more of a normal meal, these quick use instant oatmeal packets are definitely convenient. Good quality food, good energy, and they taste alright, and there's very, very little prep work involved. You can obviously supplement all of that food with whatever power bar or energy bar you'd like. The Cliff bars are very handy. They taste good. They're decently good quality and they're okay for you. They also have caffeine supplemented energy bar or Cliff bars too, if you want that type of thing. Stingers, like we talked about already. You can also add electrolyte B vitamins and some caffeine to your water with the little sport Sport packets. If you would like to be found, brighter colored clothing, brighter colored gear, lights, whistles, whatever you can do to increase your visibility. If you would not like to, and things like this too, this like high 130 decibel personal emergency alarm. As soon as you pull the little tab, loud noise if you would like to be found. You can also supplement your gear with a little bit bigger version of waterproof storage containers. You can put whatever you'd like in here, and you can obviously change it as your trip progresses. You can put different things, take different things out. Little survival guide, button compass, hand sanitizer, earplugs, waterproof matches, more water tablets, Pedialyte packets, more batteries, and some sunscreen down there. Last couple things to talk about. So if the goal is to be surviving, evading, resisting, or escaping in general, just the SEER, Army, Navy, Marine Corps survival handout is useful. You can also buy waterproof, bigger versions of survival guides if you want to keep that in your pack. If you want to keep it on your phone, just make sure that you have access to your phone. And with that, I think that about covers it.